Tomato disease cannot be prevented completely. It's going to happen, and it doesn't mean it's your fault. They are prone to disease. By doing a few simple methods now, you can help prevent disease and manage disease before it gets out of control, so you've got a great shot at getting lots of tomatoes to harvest this season. First, we're going to focus on preventing tomato disease because it's a lot easier to prevent disease before it happens than to manage it once it does happen. So the first method we're going to use is pruning. Now, I'm not talking about single stem pruning or pruning out the suckers. I'm talking about pruning the lower 6 inches of the plant, because what happens is a lot of the pathogens live in the soil, and when the water splashes from the soil to the leaves, that's when a lot of disease occurs. So we're going to prune the lower 6 inches, and super important that you sanitize and clean your pruners before and after each cut. So I've got a little jar here of isopropyl alcohol. It'll sanitize my pruners. So I'm just going to go through here and clean out and prune out the bottom 6 inches. It allows for a lot more airflow. Now, if you have a large leaf like this that isn't on the bottom 6 inches of the plant, this one's a little bit higher up, but it is almost touching the ground. You can actually snip off half the branch. That way you minimize your chance of soil splash. You may need to do this a couple of times during the growing season. Next preventative method is mulching. Now, mulching is super important, not only to reduce water evaporation so you don't have to water as often, but also to reduce that dreaded soil splash, so pathogens are not splashing from the soil up onto your plants. So here I'm just using something called clean straw, and I like to just spread a couple of inches throughout my tomato bed, keep my plants cooler in the hot weather, and keep the water from splashing from the soil onto the plants. Next prevention is to boost the plant's immunity. And this has been huge for me. I used to use all the natural remedies like putting an aspirin in the soil or spraying with an aspirin spray. And honestly, I really didn't see a difference. A couple of years ago, I started using Monterey Complete Disease Control. What a huge difference I saw in my plants. Much less disease during the season. Now, this is an organic treatment, and it has a naturally occurring beneficial soil bacterium that when your roots are drenched with it, it colonizes around the roots of your plants and helps boost the plant's natural immune system and fend off disease. So how this can be used for a preventative measure is you do a root drench at planting time or a couple of weeks after planting time. You add the concentrate to your watering can, and then I'm not going to water for about 24 hours afterwards. And the reason for this is because it contains those beneficial microbes, and they need time to kind of settle down and colonize those roots with all the good bacteria. If you water again right away, they'll just wash away and you'll dilute the effectiveness of the product. In spite of our best intentions and our best preventative measures, disease will happen. And it doesn't necessarily mean you did anything wrong. When it happens, you have to be armed and ready to control it. There are 2 different types of tomato diseases: soft diseases and hard diseases. A good example of a soft disease is powdery mildew. You've probably seen it on your cucumbers, maybe on your tomatoes. It's that soft white fuzz that kind of starts growing on your leaves. A lot of times you can tell if it's a soft disease if you can kind of wipe it off the plant. The soft diseases are just on the surface of the plant, and they're much easier to get rid of. Now, a hard disease is totally different. I've actually got some type of a spot hard disease going on here on my tomato plant. This is actually a spot on the leaf. This is not something you're going to be able to wipe off. It's within the leaf of the plant. The most important thing to managing disease on your tomato plants is to catch them early. Super important. So the first thing I do, whether it be a soft disease or a hard disease, is I prune off the affected leaves. Dip your pruner in alcohol to clean them, and especially to avoid the spread of disease. So for powdery mildew, I'll trim off the leaves that are affected. For hard diseases, the same thing. Trim off any leaves all the way to the stem here that have the spots on them, and this will really help prevent the spread. And always check the bottom branches. So not only can Monterey Complete Disease Control be used as prevention, but also as disease management. We're actually going to use a spray this time rather than a root drench. Now, for soft diseases like powdery mildew, it will actually cure it if you spray it at the very first signs of it occurring. For hard diseases, it's not going to cure it because remember, it's in the tissue of the plant. It won't make the spots actually go away on the leaves of the plant, but it will help it from preventing on future new leaves. So I'm going to spray the top of the leaves, the bottom of the leaves. I always spray in the evening when the bees aren't as active. Never spray in direct sunlight so you don't have UV damage to your plant. So once the powdery mildew shows up, I spray every 7 to 10 days for about 2 to 3 weeks. And when the new growth looks clean without powdery mildew, I switch to a preventative spray every 2 to 3 weeks, just to keep it from creeping back in. Now for the hard diseases, it won't cure what's already infected, and it definitely slows the spread. All the links to the supplies I use are in the video description. And remember, you don't have to get discouraged because you have tomato disease. It's not your fault, and there's lots of things you can do to prevent or manage it. As always, I'll be reading the comments. Thanks for watching. See you next time in the garden.